everybody, Tony D and Little Joan here. Say hi, Little Joan. Say hi. Oh, she did it in rehearsal. Anyhow, we are here to do some hot takes. This one's about... Yeah, you're a little late, Joe. This one's about the shooter and some of the media coverage of it. The media coverage, Joan. But sometimes the media coverage is the bigger story about how perceptions are perceived, little dog. You don't understand perceptions. You don't understand nothing. You're a dog. So here's your blanket. Go to sleep while I talk to everybody, okay? All right. Ahmad Alyssa. What? All right. You can sit up here. Come on. Feeling left out. Ahmad Alyssa is the Boulder shooting suspect. And this is an article from Heavy, 5 Fast Facts You Need to Know. It's a pretty good article. It's more than 5 fast facts, but Alyssa's brother said he was mentally disturbed and paranoid. His motive remains under investigation. And apparently, he had some weird Facebook posts and stuff about his wrestling days that he would lose his temper. Lose his temper in a very bad way. And, he posted a lot, so there's a ton of information. But here's the thing. The Twitter idiots came out and they immediately said, oh, it's a white man. It's a white man who did the shooting. And they immediately made it racial. Because a picture leaked of the shooter being arrested by the cops. And he kind of, you could see from this picture, although he's Syrian, he could pass as a white guy. He looks white. He's pretty light skinned for a Syrian guy. I don't think Syrians are particularly dark, if I think about it. But he could easily pass as a white guy. And so the Twidiots got on and they were immediately, oh, another white guy shooting because of what happened in Atlanta. And then it came out he was Syrian, and then suddenly their attitude changed. And there's all sorts of hypocrisy. You could check out Jack Posobiec on Twitter and a few others, posting the L's of the various leftists who immediately jumped the gun, started talking about the shooting, but then it turned out it was, a guy who's Syrian, who technically, I guess, is a person of color. But who cares? Who cares? That doesn't matter. What matters is the guy did something terrible and people died. And fixating on his race is just terrible. So his own brother says he thinks he's mentally disturbed. Alyssa lived most of his life in the United States, and his Facebook page said he was born in Syria. And according to the article, he was born in Syria in 1999, and his parents moved 3 years later to the States. So he was 3 when he moved here. Essentially, he's an American. He's probably known nothing else. So, other than the fact he probably speaks, I'm not sure what they speak in Syria. I don't think they have their own language. They probably speak Arabic, I'm guessing, or Farsi, something like that. But other than that, I mean, he's an American kid. When you start in America at 3, it's not like you've missed all that much. It's not like your cultural identity has grown by the time you're 3. Number 3, Alyssa graduated from Arvarna West High School, where he was on the wrestling team, and that's where some incidents happened. You can see here he posted this meme, me making bad choices in life, my self-control. So, but he did win some medals, but apparently he couldn't keep it together. Video emerged of Alyssa being arrested shortly after the shooting, and live stream video showed the immediate aftermath, which I'm not going to show you because God knows what's on there. But you could find it on video, Twitter. Yeah, here we go. Here, this is a graphic video. I'm not going to show it. And stuff has been already taken off of YouTube. Here's people running from the shooting, I assume. And Alyssa's Facebook page included Muslim and anti-Trump references, along with a bunch of homophobic slurs. So, this didn't fit the profile that the leftists wanted, right? That part of it, maybe. The part about homophobic slurs, they would have been ecstatic, right? Because they could have assumed, oh, some angry white guy who hates gay people. But it wasn't. It was an angry Arabic guy who hated Trump and apparently made some homophobic slurs. Whether or not he hated gay people is another story. But Jesus, I mean, you wanna see some embarrassing tweets? Get to Twitter now and look up this, because these leftists couldn't help themselves. Right on the heels of the spa shooting in Atlanta, they're all about this, and they're all trying to make it racial. And the spa shooting wasn't even racial. No. First off, the guy stated quite clearly that he did it because he felt the women contributed to his sex addiction or something like that. Anyone who's going to shoot up a bunch of innocent people is probably got some mental issues. Almost 100%. I mean, the only exception would be some gangster doing it, but even that guy is probably messed up too, to be that lack of compassion for human beings. I mean, let's be honest here. But the media wanted to paint this as, oh, here's another white guy. We got to get rid of their guns. The angry white guys are coming. Here's Kamala Harris's niece. That's not her, but blasted for tweet assuming Colorado shooter was white man. This is wild. Mina Harris deleted tweet after suspect revealed to be born in Syria. So, and this is what someone on Twitter said was the worst apology ever. Mina Harris, I deleted a previous tweet about the suspect in the Boulder shooting. I made an assumption based on his being taken into custody alive and the fact that the majority of the mass shootings in the U.S. are carried out by white men. Well, that may be your perception, probably because the media jumps on every shooting in a certain way, because they're looking to push a narrative rather than give you information. So, it's bad. It's bad to do this. And, she got ratioed on Twitter for it, obviously. And of course, politicians jump in to throw in their 2 cents. Here's Biden. We need to ban assault weapons. Biden calls for gun control after Boulder shooting, because of course he would. For those of you who don't know, Biden is an absolute nut for gun control. And he will try to pass this. And hopefully it will blow up in everybody's face. Because even the left likes guns now. And how are you going to protect yourself when things go to hell in a handbasket? Which every day it looks like we're headed down that road. So if some gun nut could just shoot up a grocery store, do you really want to be disarmed? Do you think a ban on any kind of gun would have stopped this guy from getting a weapon? No, absolutely not. Wouldn't even have slowed him down. When you're looking to break the law, guns will rain down from the sky. Senator Murphy, Democrat, not passing gun control sends a message to mass shooters that it's okay. I didn't realize the mass shooters had their own lobby in Congress. Wow, those guys are really organized. All the pro-mass shooters, they just keep bugging this poor senator. Why don't you leave them alone, mass shooters? Stick to your own kind. I mean, what is he talking about? That doesn't send... These guys are... I mean, his own brother said he was disturbed and paranoid. Apparently, according to the article. And certainly the spa guy seems like he had a major, major issue. So... it's these people are not going to stop because you said. I mean, first off, you don't even enforce the laws we have. Look at the immigration law. You don't enforce that. So when things go to hell in a handbasket and people want guns, they'll get them. And all your law will do is punish the people too stupid or too slow that get caught, which isn't going to stop anybody who's determined to go out in the blaze of glory, as this guy seemed to be. From big league politics, shock and all, feds admit they are prosecuting January 6th guys to create chilling effect on First Amendment. I think that's a bit hyperbolic, big league politics, but I don't think it's totally untrue. And the point of this is simply that look at how they treat people who had no guns versus people who have guns. It's kind of like night and day. These people had no guns. Not a single gun found among them. And yet, they didn't prosecute BLM and Antifa rioters, and those people had explosives. But because they perceive their cause as righteous, they excuse it. And really, they don't perceive the cause as righteous. They just did it for political gain to hurt Trump. Twitter won't say if dehumanizing language about whiteness violates rules. And this is how the media controls stuff. You can see Twitter tweeting LGBT, Black Lives Matter, and communism. That's pretty much right if you've been on Twitter recently. It's pretty woke. A lot of wokeness on there. A lot. And Jack just seems content to let it run rampant. Despite his all his righteous pronouncements. And speaking of righteous pronouncements, the war on Christian Baker now in 9th year as state puts him on trial. He will make cakes for all people, but he cannot make cakes for all messages. The state of Colorado, which was determined by the Supreme Court to exhibited hostility to Christianity in its prosecution of a baker who declined to create messages that violated his faith, has now put him on trial for the same charge. The trial for Jack Phillips of Masterpiece Cake Shop began Monday on the charge that he refused to bake a cake celebrating the anniversary of a man's transition to a woman. Courthouse News reported. The Supreme Court ruled in a previous case in which the state prosecuted him for refusing to bake a wedding cake for a same-sex couple. He has stated will bake cakes for anyone, but he won't create any message that violates his Christian beliefs. His latest case was brought by a transgender lawyer, Autumn Scardina. The court has thrown out one of the counts in the case, an allegation of deceptive business practices, pointing out that none of the statements relied upon the plaintiff was an advertisement. Lawyer John McHugh argued Monday on behalf of Scardina before Denver County Judge Alan Jones that Scardina wanted a cake but was refused based on her identity. Scardina admitted that she had vented against Phillips by writing him emails when his same-sex wedding case was going on. Come on. Why would you go to this guy? There's a million bakers out there. You had to go to the one. You had to go to the one that was already sued, who's super Christian enough that he's not going to put that on a cake. You had to go to him. You have to have his cake. All the bakers in the world, he has to be forced to make you that cake. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's a complete waste of time. Go to another baker. You're free to go to another baker. You're going to force people to bake cakes for you? You can't let this happen. Because if you could force a man to bake a cake for you, why can't you force him to, I don't know, make clothes for you? Why can't you force him to do anything? As long as he's in business. Why can't you force him to, pledge his allegiance to you and your beliefs? I mean, and we've been through this a million times. Would you force a Jewish baker to bake a cake for one of the guys who worship the bad guys from Germany? No, you wouldn't do that. That would be horrible. The baker should have the ability to go, no, thank you, I don't want your business. Just like you have the ability to go online and complain about it like everybody else on Twitter. But you live in a world of your own, in my opinion. In that world, everybody has to cater to you. Go to another baker. It's a simple solution. Oh, but a 9-year lawsuit, that's much better. This is the message we get in media. Everything's a righteous crusade. Joe Biden appoints special envoy to stem border surge as White House asserts situation not a crisis. See? He's got a special envoy. It's all under control. This is what the media does. Under Trump, and Trump had fewer migrants to deal with because he was actually enforcing the border, right? So these facilities weren't overflowing with people. They had a lot of people in them, but they weren't overflowing. Trump was sending them back. Trump kept them from coming in. And eventually you process enough people, they go down in the facility. Oh, not Biden. They're going up, up, up. They don't have the room. I saw one report. It's like something like 746% over capacity. Yeah, it's completely out of control. Joe Biden, 100% to blame for this. All he had to do was come into office and say, well, we're going to look at the border and maybe we're going to make some decisions or whatever. Instead, he unraveled everything and invited every foreigner to come into the country. Don't worry, we're not going to give you a beer virus test, just a court date that you'll never show up for and cut you loose. Doesn't make any sense. If you're so paranoid that you got to wear a mask everywhere, if you're so paranoid about the beer virus, then you have to test these people at least. You have to test them. I tell you why they won't test them. Because what if they test them and they're positive? Now they have to either A, send them back, or B, they have to quarantine them and quarantine everybody who was in contact with them, which makes it 10 times worse. Because then they need doctors and they need tests. They're not going to do that. They don't want these people to test positive. They don't want to give them any kind of medical treatment. They want to cut them loose and let them fend for themselves because they don't care about them. They just need serfs. They just need more slavery, essentially what these people turn into. They have no real legal status in the United States. Even Biden is not giving them amnesty. He just said, well, I'll give them a path to citizenship in 8 years. Oh, I'll be out of office then. I mean, it just so happens I can only serve a maximum of 8 years. But that's just a coincidence. Please. MSNBC members use photos from 2019 to shame Miami spring breakers over beer virus. This is why you can't trust the media. This is why you can't trust them. Okay? This is why when a shooting happens and they start talking about it and you see people on Twitter complaining, you say to yourself, and this is what I did, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait a few hours, see what information comes out. And lo and behold, these people who were screaming about whiteness, screaming about the Atlanta shooter, now they've essed the bed. They look like a-holes. Because this stuff keeps happening more and more. MSNBC, they don't care. It's crowded beach. Use that picture. This is the time of the beer virus. May not have been half that crowded. We don't know. But go ahead, MSNBC. Just use an old picture. It would have been different if this was 2017 and you used a picture from 2016. I don't think anybody would have cared. But this is 2021. MSNBC. You don't get that pass. Trial begins for UK cop charged with sharing offensive meme. Yes, this is our future because a lot of this stuff happens in the UK first, where I think they pilot tested it, and then it moves to here. So they have actual hate crime laws on the books now in the UK, and they caught a cop sharing a meme, which they billed as offensive. It was a George Floyd meme. They showed it on the Lotus Eaters yesterday, I think, and I don't have a picture of it here. It was a George Floyd meme of how to describe it. It was a guy they've used before in memes who wasn't, he's not George Floyd, and the implication was he was standing over George Floyd, not kneeling on him, but I think having sex with him because he's naked. Or they don't show him totally. And then the caption was something like, "Dude, please don't resist," or something like that. So the implication being that he wasn't kneeling on George, he was having sex with him, I guess. But I mean, he shared this in a private chat with other officers and a friend who knocked him out. And if you can imagine that, you can imagine one of your friends reporting to the cops over a meme. And he did this not on company time, it seems, but on his own time. So, but that's the state of the UK, and I would predict that it's going to be coming here. That the Democrats are going to try to push this as soon as they can. Right now, they got a lot on their plate. Hopefully, they'll continue to S the bed. But meanwhile, I think the tide is turning a bit in the UK. The first 8 suspects are arrested as detectives hunt up to 500 extremists behind Bristol riot, and police chairman says criminals who tried to set vans alight with officers inside committed attempted murder. So, if you didn't hear my video from yesterday, there was a riot in Bristol in the UK, and it got really out of hand. And the rioters were Antifa, BLM rioters. But what we have to understand is the UK doesn't have the same kind of situation we do. You know, I think it was in this riot, they had a sign, one of the guys had a sign that said "Abolish ICE." They don't have ICE in the UK. They have a completely different, organization. We have Immigration Custom Enforcement. Is that what it stands for? I think, and that's only in the States. They don't have it in the UK, but they still had that sign because they're copying everything from Antifa here in Portland. See, the Antifa guys back in the 90s started copying Antifa in Europe. And now it's gotten so bad here, it's been allowed to fester here, that it's being exported back to Europe. And France has been complaining about it, and they're cracking down. Now finally the UK's cracking down, and will be cracking down very soon, leftists. Very soon, because Biden's going to realize, we don't need you a-holes anymore. Let's crack down. Let's crack down. I'm going to crack down for my buddy Ted Wheeler, who stuck with me and kept making Trump look bad. Same thing with that woman in Seattle. Oh, we're going to help these people out. Yeah, you're all going to jail. I knew it's taken time. Hope you've enjoyed your freedom up to now, but it's a coming. And the sentences you're going to get. I mean, there's a woman in Philly. She's looking at 80 years for setting 2 cop cars on fire. And there wasn't even anybody in it. There's 2 lawyers from New York. They got caught. They're going down for attempted murder, I think, on 2 cops. They threw Molotov cocktails they were in a car. The cops were, and they threw the Molotov cocktails at the car. It's not good, man. And like the shooter in Colorado, see, I had a way to tie it in. These leftists have a perception. The shooter in Colorado was apparently a big fan of the Washington Post, and he was caught up in anti-Trump stuff and that everybody's racist. I mean, he got totally caught up in it. And just like a lot of these leftists get caught up in it, they think they're in a war. They don't know anything. They're caught up in a moral panic because the news has told them over and over again, Orange Man bad. Bad guys from Germany are everywhere. Why aren't you protesting in the street? You're a bad person unless you believe this stuff. Get woke, or you're not a good person. So they get woke because that's a trend and all their friends are doing it. And then they sit around and they talk about how woke they are, and then somebody ought to do something. And there's a sliver of people who say, yeah. And they've got nothing to live for. And then they do something, and they end up doing something stupid because they don't know what they're doing. The smarter ones, they start reading and going, wait a minute. That was me, eventually. I started reading stuff and going, hold on a second. You guys aren't totally honest. You're saying BS. It was many years ago. But now it's all come together. So I hope some of you out there can put it together yourself. This is a trend. You know, we were doing great when Trump was in, and even before, even with Obama around. I mean, the world was doing fantastic. We were putting people connected to the electrical grid and to the internet and clean water and all these great strides. And now it's all gone to hell over what? A power grab. That's what this is. That's what the virus is. That's what all this communism is. It's a power grab. And who is doing the power grab? Well, I believe it's the Chinese government. Because those guys want to shift the entire narrative so they're in control of everything. So they could do to us what they do to their own citizens in China. Watch them 24/7 and harangue them, and, you know, except we kind of have different rules here. But their rules are coming here. Gun control is one of their rules. Censorship, that's their rules. And just like our great prestige around the world has influences governments to be more democratic, the opposite will happen if China becomes the rising power. We will be influenced back the other way. It's already happened. Look at all these idiot communists, all these college kids who have bought into this, all these professors. This is the influence of China, and we have to stop it. So, get out there, educate yourself, and for God's sake, stay away from the colleges, will you?